you. So welcome everyone. It's a great pleasure to have you. Is a very quick overview. Many of you were on last week. For those that weren't, this was this idea of this webinar was really the brainchild of a conversation that my partner in the Advantage Training group, Russ Simons, and I had around how could we find a valuable and user-friendly way to add back to our industry. And so that's what that's what we've done through these webinars. We hope you'll find them useful. Last week we had a session on finding your why, and it got great feedback. And we're looking for any feedback you have on ways we can make these better. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce to you Mike Song, who's our special guest. And I know Mike from afar, about 15 years back, roughly when they were working on the Hamster Revolution. One of his partners in the book, Vicky Halsey with Ken Blanchard's group, has been a great friend of mine. But let me tell you a little bit about Mike that you may not already know. He's an award-winning author, obviously, with a number of best-selling books, including The Hamster Revolution, which is, if you haven't read it, read it, and you'll get to hear a lot today about it, and Zip Tips. Interestingly, Mike has presented to over 20% of the global 1,000 companies. He's also been a prime and senior presenter for the military services, including the Army, Navy, and Marines. He's helped millions via his online and television and media broadcast. You've likely seen him, and when you hear him in a moment, you'll recall he's a regular on Good Morning America, CNN, Fox News, Wall Street Journal, etc. And his books are actually available in 12 languages, and I'm still working on learning my first language, Mike, so I only need one of those. But if you would all join me, please, it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Mike Song, who's going to take us through some great tips to save us all time. We guarantee you this will be a real help to you.
Oh, thanks, Richard. And I will share my screen. Richard, maybe you could just give me the yes when you can see my screen here, just to make absolutely sure. I think I am broadcasting now to the world.
You got it. You are on.
Welcome, everybody. When I was sitting where you're sitting, I wanted one thing, something really practical that made me say, wow, that could help me get more done. So that's my mission today, 3 or 4 things that you will do differently after we get done today so that you can be part of this growing, I think, community that we're building of folks that love to look at technology and say to themselves, how can I get more done? And when you get more done, I'm convinced of this one thing: life's more satisfying, or to put it really bluntly, you have more fun. Life is more fun when you're working productively and technology is your friend versus maybe something that is overwhelming, overloading, and overworking with you. So I just have one request for you here today that I would really appreciate, and that is that if you can, when you are when you see something that's new and useful. Now I'm just looking, if you see me looking over to the side, I'm looking at what you are saying to me. So if you see something that's new, useful, and helpful, just type a W for wow into the screen, and that's the way that I will understand what you want to see there. So here we go. We're jumping in, and now you should see a slide that says a day in the life. And if you don't, just let me know. But a day in the life is your life. This is about you, not me. So very, very quickly, here is the day in the life that we've come to understand through 83,000 surveys. You get up in the morning. We're in the middle of this incredible situation with COVID-19, but also on a typical day before this, you may have found you had too much email, too many chats, texts. There's a lot of churn that happens even overnight. So you get up thinking, I got to catch up. And that's not the greatest space to be in. So today we want to help you with that. Then you probably head off to some virtual meetings, live meetings, and there you may have good or poor presenters. You may get great value, but probably what our data is showing that a big percentage of that meeting time is not so good for you because you were trying to catch up on that part one, too much email, too much stuff going on. Then there's an endless stream of interruption, surprise tasks, and time management challenges, a whole bunch of things that takes you off your game. So you're just about to get an action item done from that meeting, and suddenly you get turned in a different direction. It's just this crazy world that we live in right now. And on top of that, there's usually some new technology that you need to learn, something that you wish you could spend a little more time on, get underneath the roof of that car, get inside there and learn something new. But how can you do that with all this going on? Does this sound familiar to everybody here? Is this the world that we're living in? Let me know. If this sounds familiar to you, just type a Y into that chat box right now. And let me know that this is the same kind of work that I'm seeing in all my research. There you go. Look at all those Ys flowing by. Thanks a lot, everybody, for being such a great group, too. And of course, the more you participate in something like this, the more you probably absorb. So one big picture idea about that day in the life that's so universal to us all, maybe think about it like this. You know your industry, you're excellent at what you do. Let's call that your biz IQ. And you have to have that to be successful. Tagging along to that, something that I know Richard talks about a lot. He's got a lot of wisdom in this area. And of course, my mentor, Ken Blanchard, probably a genius level. You have to have some emotional intelligence too. You have to understand how to work with people, how to motivate people. All for those of us who are disciples of Ken, learning just reading his book, The 1 Minute Manager, was a revelation, life changer for me. So that was really basically saying, how do you motivate people, catching them doing things right? All of these things that you almost instantly feel when you meet a great leader. You have to have that today. But I would submit that the third leg of this tripod that our careers are balanced on is how good we are with technology. So we have developed a whole idea that TQ, your tech proficiency, is where it's at. So that's it. That's my introduction. But that's the philosophically deep place where we like to get ourselves into. How do we help connect these three things together so they're all working for us all the time? And that comes from, I think, understanding the technology around us. So I just have one question for you. Here's a survey question on your screen. It takes a certain number of minutes to recover your pace of workflow, even when you're just interrupted by an email, let alone if it's hard to understand, not well written, a little confusing. How many minutes does it take you after that interruption to get back in the pace of workflow? If you feel like typing in your best guess, you can type it right into that chat box. Whoever gets the closest wins a free imaginary iPad Pro. Yes, we've authorized 15 free iPad Pros to be given out today, but they're all imaginary, okay? Now, the answers are going by faster than I can see them move, but I would say we're seeing everybody saying usually in at least 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, which is a lot of time when you think about it. So here it is. The survey says 15 minutes. So just a great thing to think about. If you go for a walk today in a moment of reflection, every time I get interrupted, I slow down for 15 minutes. And then I get back on pace. Then I get interrupted again. This is the cycle, the hamster wheel that we are all on all the time. So let's jump into what I know you're here for. What are you going to do? How are you going to help me, Mike? We can't even get together and do a workshop right now. I'm going to send your way, I'm putting them out there right now, some robots. I know it's a silly analogy, but underneath our fingertips are some time-saving robots that we can all use more and more. And if you like these robots, then we only ask you to do these couple things that relate to TQ. Share that Venue Solutions Group video with your colleagues. Help them meet these robots too. And if you're interested in a webinar for your organization, we're always here for you at getcontrol.net. Filter, find, and prioritize. These are some of the things, just some of the things the robots you're about to meet will do. And keep in mind, we'll stay on after our half hour if there's some questions about different formats. But let's race through 6 or so robots right now so you get some good value out of our time together. Robot number 1, the nav bot, the navigation bot. You see, we've always got to question our environment. And when folks work within the world of Outlook, they're typically set up like this. See down here in the lower left-hand corner, you have these tiny little icons in the lower left there. Not bad, not horrible. But guess what? There's a better setting that will help you navigate to all the places that you go in Outlook. So why not constantly work to optimize that environment? So if you happen to be in front of the desktop version of Outlook on a PC, I want you to click on this 3DB. Okay, we've got some terms for you too to help this growth continue. 3DB stands for, get ready, 3-dot button. Every time you see a 3-dot button in the world of Microsoft or Gmail even, I want you to click on it because that means more options. We want to learn that technology environment, boost our TQ. Click on that 3DB, 3-dot button, select navigation options. See that? Navigation. We want this nav bot working for us, not the other way around. And then you uncheck compact navigation. Now that was 3 steps, very simple. You can adjust where these different things that will display by moving them up or down or control the number of them that there are there. Very easy to do. Email me if you have a problem with it, but just click OK and watch a better navigation system replace most likely what you had before. This is a great little gift, this NavBot, because as I hover over these, I can actually see my calendar too. So this is the gift that keeps on giving. So let's give a scenario here. Let's say, for example, I'm popped into a message, and that message is saying, Mike, are you available on these 4 days? Can you come and work with us? I'll basically hover over my calendar, and then I can click into those days. And down here, I can see if I'm available on those days. I've got a pretty busy schedule over the next couple of weeks, so maybe we push that out to June. So there's the W starting. Dorothy and Brandy, you guys are leading the W pack of those wow moments. I love it in the chat box. That's great. So what this does is it allows me to not leave my inbox, to check my calendar, race ahead even months into the future, and check a date in August 13th. That's wide open right now, okay? So this will help you navigate faster, and the fewer clicks and the less mental energy that you have to use, the better off you are. The gift that keeps on giving, I said, right? If you have tasks in Outlook, you can see those as well. You can even search for people in Outlook. So that's our first robot, the NavBot. Everybody should have this very simple navigation set up. And you can see he's smiling because he knows you're setting it up today, changing something in your environment. So now let's meet another robot, the Transformer. What if when you get an action or a task inside of an email message, oh, I got to get back to Adam on this, I got to get back to Richard on that. What if a robot would pop up and say, I got this. I'm gonna change this from an email that's rapidly moving down to the bottom of your inbox, out of sight, to the bottom of that inbox ocean down there below, right? To right on your calendar where you can't possibly miss it. So you're going to get it done. So it was an email, it becomes a calendar item. Here's how the Transformer robot works. And by the way, you can do this as well by highlighting that email and clicking on the 3 dots inside of Gmail as well and selecting create event. But here, let's say I've got this great, I got this message here from, let's take this one from Lisa here. If I left click and drag and drop this down to that calendar icon, which now we've made it bigger thanks to the NavBot, so it's easy to drag and drop this on there, and I let go, what happened? The Transformer robot shot in there in a blink of an eye, changed the email into a calendar item. So I'll tell you one thing I've noticed in observing people about when it comes to Outlook, they check their calendar and they check their email the most. So I will usually pop this onto my calendar at a ballpark time when I know I can get it done. Hey, you know what? I can't do this thing now, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pop this to Friday, and I'll get this done towards the end of the day because that's my clean up everything time for time management. I hit save and close. Maybe I change this to action too, just to give you a little strategy there. Action wakes you up and gets you thinking about that. So now that's on my calendar right there on Friday. So I've turned that into an action. See, it's right there on my calendar right now. Notice I like to color code and prioritize stuff a lot. So here, let me give you what I think is the second best use of this Transformer. And it's actually transformed my world in a lot of ways. I meet someone like Richard, like Adam, and I want to get to know them and I want them to be, in my universe. What I typically will do, let's say, I'll use this guy, Andy, because I already have Richard in my database. I look at this guy, Andy, I say, okay, I want Andy. If I want to know Andy, he's an important person. Watch this maneuver here with the Transformer robot. I don't have to say it, but in my head, I'm thinking, all right, Transformer, let's pop Andy into my Outlook contacts so that if he calls me, I can see it's him. I left click and drag Andy's email into the people icon. I let go. I got a wow from Stella there. And look what just happened. Andy just turned into a contact. Thank you, Transformer robot. Let's just pretend this is his phone number here. This is sort of just a spammy message. But I see that phone number there, and I swoop in, right? I'm going to highlight it, copy it, and I'm going to paste it right into this area here. Why did I do that? So that when Andy calls me, I see it's Andy. When Richard calls me, I see it's Richard. When Ken Blanchard calls me, I see it's Ken Blanchard. I'm taking that call no matter where I am. I think I'd take that call, almost anywhere, anytime. Great. I got an I love this. Fantastic. So that Transformer robot's always transforming, always sitting there, but he's lonely. He wants you to ask him for some help. Right now, we're going to go to what I think will be the #1 tip of the day in terms of helping you have more fun at work by getting more done. And I just have a very quick story. I want to make this memorable for you. And the purpose of telling the story is to boost your confidence that as you learn this stuff, you are moving ahead of the whole world of Outlook users, which is 1 billion people. So you can't often move up. If you're in the Olympics, it's hard to move up 3 spaces, right? It's hard to go up 10 points in a basketball game or a football game or a baseball game, right? but you're going to move past 100 million people here, okay? Because there's a billion Outlook users, and none of them are doing that. And I know that because I went and taught this class at Microsoft up in Washington. I actually did it virtually, but they were all in Washington at the headquarters. They did not know this tip, okay? So this is a confidence builder for all of us, the search bot. And they even gave me a little reference on my LinkedIn account, which was reference nirvana for me. Here's the tip, and this works in Gmail. There's always an advanced search robot lurking below the surface when you're looking for a particular email. And one of the common things that we do is we look for an email with an attachment from someone we work with or an important person we're associated with. Now, we always start thinking, what are my 3 or 4 keyword search that will magically cause this thing to bubble up? And half the time, it works great. But the other half of the time, we make a little typing error. We pull up 52 messages that we now have to scroll through. We don't see that thing that we're looking for, oddly, maybe because we put it away in another folder. Search can go wrong, and search is happening all the time. So watch what I do when I search. I summon the search bot robot. So here's the search bar. This is the latest iteration of Outlook. It popped the search bar up here for some reason. It actually is going to get even worse for everybody else except us, because watch this. When I click into that search box, it immediately drops down a window, which is actually usually not that helpful. It's obscuring what just appeared under that window, which is the search robot. See this little search toolbar? It's saying, hey guys, we can do this. It's going to be a lot easier for us to do that. And I'm not sure what gender any of these robots are, but I'm going to alternate, all right? So she is telling me, hey, click on some of these buttons. You're going to be amazed at how much faster the search is. So let's look at the wrong way, and then we'll flip it to the right way. So if I were to type in a Rivera, which is my executive producer of these segments, Lisa Rivera, and I was to hit enter, it would bring up messages that have the keyword Rivera in them. I'm looking for an email from Lisa Rivera, but notice that only the ones highlighted in that yellow are actually from Lisa. All of these are just a complete waste of time for me to sort through. And heck, most of them don't have an attachment, and I'm looking for an attachment from Lisa. Now, take a deep breath and say, search bot, make my life easier, okay? This is like a Calgon bathtub commercial. You click in that search box, and instead of being distracted, you focus in on the search bot, okay? You click in the from button here, all right, from. Then you type in Lisa's last name, okay? So that was one extra click. And then you do one more click, has attachments, and then notice I've just narrowed that down to 4 or 5 email messages. If I really have a lot of hits, I can even narrow that now chronologically to this week. And there I've narrowed it to 1, which is 3 additional clicks. Think about it. I'm talking to you while I'm doing this. That's how mindlessly easy this is. So I found this to be a practical superstar tip. And Richard, look at all those people flying by. This is hopefully making us, oh, this is great. Game changer. That's like my favorite phrase, Matthew. Okay, great. Don't feel bad. The folks from Microsoft looked at me and they said, I think we just added this functionality. And I said, no, it's been here for a long time. They said, well, how long has this search robot been showing up? And I have never clicked on it. I said, well, only since 2010, which was 9 years. So for 9 years, they missed the opportunity to narrow their searches. So don't feel bad if you were missing it, but just try to use it from now on out like they're doing. And I got to give them credit. Anyone that says, hey, I may not be using my own tool correctly, I got to hand it to them. That's an open-minded person to improvement, and that's how you get better at stuff in life. There's a million variations on this one robot, which I won't take you through all of them. But if, let's say you're a flagger, anyone like to flag your priorities? You're saying, you know, I went to that time management class. They said I'm supposed to prioritize stuff. I flag all this stuff, but it's a little hard to round up all those flags. Not anymore. Because now you can just click into the search area here, click on flagged, and round up all of your flagged email just like that. So these are the robots that I love. I call them the gifts that keep on giving. They just keep on giving. And guess what? Some of these robots, well, beautifully, some of these robots live, thankfully, I think, some of these robots live in our devices as well. So let me just pull this down here. And I just want to show you a couple quick things on your smartphones here. Now, I know some of you are on Android phones, but a lot of these things will work in a similar fashion on an Android phone. So very quickly, on the Outlook app, which is, by the way, if you have permission, most people do, to use the Outlook app, This is great because it works the same on an Android phone as an iPhone, so we don't have to get into stuff that might confuse one or the other users. You tap on that app, and what you can see there as you kind of scroll through this app is a couple things. Now, one thing that's iPhone specific that I love that I can't resist showing you, when you scroll down in that inbox and you want to pop to the top, if you're on an iPhone, just tap over 11:20 p.m. there, right there, and it should pop you back up to the top. And that works everywhere throughout this entire ecosystem of the world of your iPhone. So it works in settings and other places. More importantly, don't forget you've got that filter feature right here. So you can tap filter, isolate attachments, but here's a little design flaw, nothing that I didn't mention to Microsoft. Now I've isolated attachments, but it's not so clear how I then search for that email from Lisa with attachments. So I want to show you that the same robot lives in the device, but there's a little bit of a cool trick that I learned on how to find that robot. So the Microsoft app is pretty cool for Outlook because you got your email and your calendar in there together, which is a good thing. So I'm going to tap the little search magnifying glass bottom center, and again, a little confusing. I see search for mail, events, contacts, and files. Well, if I'm looking for an email from Lisa, you know what? This is a little confusing to me because I'm not looking for contacts. You know, that's just going to create too many hits. So tap in there and try this little trick. Just type in the from, and eventually it just will come up as part of the search. See how that from Rivera just comes up? Then type Lisa's last name in there. And now that little signal, this also works in a Google search, same way. Now I've got mostly email messages from Lisa. Now here's the trick that everybody misses. I can still ask for attachments only from my results, if and only if I know the secret, which is down here, this little F ... ER, that is the filter button, okay? That could be anything, right? So if we tap on that, that gives us the ability to ask for attachments only, and now we are searching a little bit better, a little bit smarter, a little bit faster. See, from Lisa Rivera with attachments, from Lisa Rivera with attachments, and on and on and on. So use this app and try to work with that search so that you find what you need fast. When you find it fast, you're going to be getting more done every day, okay? I hope you guys are having fun and finding this useful so far. I'm having a blast with you folks. 2 more smartphone tips, must-try tips that I think will take your game to the next level. When you're crafting an email message on a smartphone, it's notorious for this problem. As you stare at the screen, every number, every symbol, every piece of punctuation, it isn't on the screen, is it? It's just an alpha keyboard, and we've got to go to the notorious 1, 2, 3 area here, tap 1, 2, 3 to get all of that stuff. That's where those autocorrect errors start happening, because as you go back, it's so easy to type, you know, live instead of love, you know, or you know, substitute 2 things that completely change the meaning. You know, maybe you were going to say something I, and you type the U and it changes the meaning. You know, I think of like, you guys are the champs, and somehow it, you know, autocorrect will also change it to you guys are the chumps. You know, this is not going to make you look good if your team just won the World Series or the Super Bowl or whatever it is. So here's my tip for you. Try to experiment with those advanced dictation features, not that little Siri thing. Because Siri, when you pause, Siri says, "You're done. Do you want me to send it?" When you were just pausing to collect your thoughts. But here's how I would use it. Hi, Richard and Adam, exclamation point, new paragraph. Request, please let me know your feedback to today's Get Control of Email and Outlook presentation, period, new paragraph. Dash. Thanks so much for the opportunity to work with your amazing community, period. I couldn't be more thrilled, exclamation point, smiley face, new paragraph. Do you have any questions? Question mark. Okay, so what is happening there? Not a heck of a lot that's hard to learn. First of all, I'm just saying my punctuation, but I don't have to go punctuation fishing on the other screen. I could see the colon printed out there, and look what I did here. Now, if you want to know who's popular in the world of sports, you could turn on your TV and figure that out, right? But if you want to know who's popular in the world of punctuation on a mobile device, come to me, because I've actually done this research. The most popular piece of punctuation you can add to a message is the bullet point. People love bullet pointed information with some space in between. When I say new paragraph, that creates the space. When I say dash dash, that creates this sort of artificial bullet point that is so much easier to find than the one that's actually on the other screen. Virtually impossible to find it. And of course, usually when you're bullet pointing stuff, you're going to bullet point a few more things. So it'll be bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. Why do this? You can create the message twice as fast. It's going to be twice as accurate. And if you use these principles of creating a smart message, put your bottom line up front, the key ask that you have up front, bullet point your background points, you're going to be communicating more clearly. And if you are on an iPhone, you should have the ability to shake the phone twice, back and forth. And guess what? That brings up your automatic undo robot, another robot that's been waiting to help you out on your iPhone. That one I don't think works the same way on an Android phone. So that's my first tip for you as far as really accelerating the clarity and effectiveness of your communications. But wait, there's more. And I'm going to zoom past a few things in this presentation. And I'm going to cover a lot of these in our part 2. So don't worry, we'll get to this. But I want to zoom, 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 zoom. Here we go. So this is the Dictabot, just a reminder, say your punctuation, say dash dash, say new paragraph. For this next one, for my friends who are on an Android phone, particularly Samsung Galaxy phones, this is the steps that you would take. So you could take your phone out and take a picture of this to make sure you got it. And I'll demonstrate it on the iPhone here. So we have the best of both worlds. Okay, so let me pull my iPhone out of your way here. And here's the next tip. Never type out something that you can auto text if you have to do it on a repetitive basis. Let me show you what I mean. So when I wrote the book, The Hamster Revolution, which thank you, Ken Blanchard, for helping me with that, because that's would never have gotten going without your help. When I type out Hamster Revolution for email, I just type in HRE and hit the space bar. And the whole title prints out, which can be very useful when people are asking you, what's the actual name of your book? There's zip tips, 2 keystrokes, 3 keystrokes. If you're on an iPhone, you might want to type in OMW, hit the space bar, and there is On My Way popping through. So how do we do this, and what will we use it for? I particularly think this is useful for your email address, perhaps a teleconference number that you might use over and over again, or maybe a customer service message to know somebody important in your world that you can't get back to them right away, but you're not ignoring them, but you don't want to take a lot of time to thumb this darn message out, right? So how do we do this? Well, we do it together. So let's do it right now. If you're on an Android phone, follow these steps. If you're on an iPhone or iPad, come along for this very quick thing, and I've got an assignment for you. Let's create this for your email address. You know, the one that you might use to log into different web pages at work or entertainment pages that you might go to for an entertainment website. Your email address may be your user ID. So this has 2 functions here. Ready, set, go. Tap on settings. You see that in the center of the gray gear. And you want to scroll down to general. All right, so where's general? There's the general right in the middle. We want to tap on general. And then we're going to look for keyboard. And you'll notice it's following a similar trajectory for my Android friends. General manage general here, and you're getting down to the keyboard and so on. And then we're going to tap on the keyboard, okay? And then we're going to tap on text replacement, okay? OMG, says Dorothy, I love it, yes. And so now here we are. We're going to tap in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. We want to tap the plus sign. And if you are sharing this with a colleague, remember what I always forget, try to slow down. It's exciting, but you want to slow it down. And then the phrase is the long phrase. Let's say this is my login for, entertainment streaming services. I use this one. So I never have to type or thumb that out. And then under shortcut, that's where you put your trigger phrase. So you type, 2 or 3 keystrokes, hit the space bar, and it prints out. So I use GE for this one because it's the first 2 letters of the actual phrase, which makes it great because then I don't have to remember the shortcuts. I just start typing the phrases as long as they don't spell a word in the English language. A big mistake would be to use the word get to trigger this email because every time I say we better get going, well, guess what? It's going to print out my email address and I'm going to be a very, very frustrated person. I hit save and I'm off to the races here. I won't hit save because I already have it here, but I hope you do and I hope you test it And I really hope you also had fun in our half-hour session. And if you want to stay on a little bit after we're done, I am more than happy to stay on, answer some questions, or if you want to see 2 or 3 more really cool things, happy to do it. But I also want to be aware that that our time together isn't infinite. So I also want to be respectful of your time. If you found this useful, you think it would be great for your team, have them watch the video that Venue Solutions is going to push your way on YouTube. And if you'd like to have a program for your organization, we'd be happy to help out. We're at getcontrol.net. Mostly, we hope that this helps you have a better day as we go through this passage of time where we're all working hard to stay focused in a difficult situation. And I just wanted to wish you, your family, your colleagues, everybody that's around you, your friends, I want to wish you safe passage through this difficult time. I'm a deep believer in staying positive, and I know that will help us all get there. So if this has brightened your day a little bit, that's awesome, because it's made me feel great just sharing this stuff with you. I have been watching your wonderful tips, your wonderful comments going through on the chat box, and it's put a big smile on my face. So on that note, Richard, why don't we turn it back over to you? You can show people what's coming up, and then we could take it from there. If there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer those, and we can keep the conversation rolling.
Mike, on behalf of everybody on here, and I saw lots of wows as well, but wow, thank you. This is terrific. And the great news is you will be back in a couple of weeks. So thank you. A couple of people have asked, will we be sharing this? This entire video will be up on our YouTube channel within 24 hours, so you'll be able to rewatch it or share it with your friends as well. Coming up next week, we have a great session working with difficult people. We're all difficult, so don't miss this. It'll be really terrific. Same time, all at 8 Pacific, 11 Eastern. On the 20th, Dina Crowder, incredible author and public speaker, TED Talk favorite, will be with us to talk about Don't Do Me Any Favors, a completely different way to look at the value of inclusiveness. On the 27th, we're going to go deeper with our great friend here, Mike Song. If you like today, you're going to like the 27th even better. And then on June 3rd, None of Us is as Smart as All of Us session that we're super excited about as well. So with that, Mike has agreed to stay on as long as you want. Russ Simons, my partner in crime with this entire training process, is on with us as well. So we'll jump on to answer any questions, and please be sure and register for next week, working with difficult people. So we'll turn it back to you, Mike, for questions and answers, and I'm sure Russ will be happy to jump in as well if there's anything that's relevant from our world.
Fantastic. I think that I saw that a couple people were interested in trying to understand how this might play out in Gmail. And I think it's a really good thing, because a lot of folks have a Gmail account. So if you are inside a Gmail, and I don't know if I can share my screen again here.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing. You're back on.
But I think it's a great thing, because we make this robot analogy, and I think that showing that Gmail has some of the same features builds a confidence to you that we're not just talking about one kind of robot. So if you are an email, let me see if I can share my screen here. Yeah, there we go. We're almost there. Let me bring up a Gmail. And I've got clients that work in Gmail. And what I've noticed is that for the most part, a lot of these robots are the same robots that you would see anywhere. So this is just a crazy inbox that has all kinds of stuff flowing in and out of it, just so we could fill it up with stuff. But I want to show you this right here. See this drop down here? That's the search robot in the world of Gmail. If you use the browser version of Outlook, which there is one in the new Office 365 version, it also has this. And the way you find it is you click here on this little tiny downward triangle, and that's where it is. So, hey, I just want to see stuff with attachments. I want to see stuff from, Lisa Rivera with attachments. Same example I gave you before. I click on that, and I click search. And that's going to draw me to all the email messages from Lisa with attachments. So the robots are around, and they live in all the same places. Another thing that's really cool is that there's usually, inside of most email tools, there is a template builder. And there's certainly one in Microsoft Word, in Outlook, and there's one inside of Gmail. So if you have a repetitive things you send out to vendors or clients or colleagues, where would you find it? Now, the interesting thing about these robots is that it always takes that little extra push to find them, but it's right down here, lower right-hand corner, out of sight, where almost no one's going to find it. If I had one thing when I've spoken to folks from Google and from Microsoft and from Apple, I'm saying, you know, if you have a good feature, make it a little easier to find. Lower right-hand corner is probably the last place people look. When you click on that, there's your template builder. And so you can create a template builder here and click and just pop it right in there. This is an example I did for another client, I think National Park Services. And it's really easy to create these templates inside of Gmail. You essentially just create the template that you want to create, something like this. You click on the 3DB, the 3-dot more options button. There's that 3DB again. You select templates and save. Save draft as a template. That's it. And then when you want to use it again, you just go back to the same location, templates, and click on the template, you know, that you've saved. And boom, it pops right into your Gmail. So if there's one message I have for you is think big, because these robots live on your mobile devices and they live on your phones. They live in your PC and even to some extent in browser-based tools like Gmail. So hopefully that's helpful for you. Any other questions here? Let me see. I want to make sure I'm checking back into the chat here.
Yeah, Mike, there's a number on here. I'm just working backwards. Eric Jepson had one on the Outlook app for iPhone. If you see that.
Got it. So this is a great question, Eric. With the Outlook app for iPhone, do you only use that one, or do you go back and forth between that and the iPhone email app? I do actually go back and forth, and which is probably unusual, but I've noticed that you can have both of them on there. So why delete one? It doesn't seem to slow the phone down. Here's where I use the one that's stock app, the Apple app, that I find pretty useful. So I tap on that stock app. And when I'm in the inbox, here's where I've had some success. And forgive me if I've got any zany email messages in here. I've got them from all stuff here. But when I click down to do the search here, and I tap the search, I find this to be pretty handy when I'm looking for that attachment from somebody or a flag message. This is just so quick to sort. So I'll do my typical sort. Hey, I'm looking for messages with attachments from somebody named, from somebody named, from somebody named, let's say, Jeff Barres. So I start typing Jeff's last name in there. And notice that people comes up right away. And if I tap on Jeff there, if I tap on him, now I'm just looking for emails from Jeff with attachments. I found that to be very, very handy. But I'll tell you one thing where I think the Outlook app has a big advantage, okay? And that is in your ability to use the auto scheduling or scheduling assistant. And it's not readily apparent when you start using the calendar that you can do this. So if we're walking a stadium and I'm with Richard and I'm with Adam and Russ, I might say, hey guys, we need to meet again, right? So watch this. If I pop in here into the calendar, and this is the calendar on the app, if I then create a new meeting time, and let's say I select that date for tomorrow, okay, I hit the checkbox and I add my people. Let's just say these are those people I was mentioning just to keep things rolling here, okay, and then I click the checkbox. Now, can you see that there's a little tiny red guy there with an X next to his head? And that means I have selected a bad time for one of those 4 people, myself and 3 other people. If I then tap on the date, notice that some of these are highlighted in yellow. And that's generally a not so great date to try to hold a meeting. Not a lot of available times for all 4 of us. So with my phone in my hand, I could be scheduling it to the 15th, which will save everybody a lot of heartache because it's a day when a lot of people are available. Then I still need to go to the time and set the time, right? Now, notice how the time is green there? What if I move this into the zone where it's a bad time for Richard? Then it turns red, telling me I'm not doing myself, Richard, or any of us any favors. I've just moved this into a bad time to schedule that meeting. So with a flick of the wrist, I move it to 1. Maybe I shorten this up a little, which I think is a great best practice to go with a 45-minute meeting there. So we have transition time to our next meeting. And now I've scheduled that meeting in a really intelligent way using the advanced features of this tool. And you can slide back and forth between the date and the time and the date and the time. See that? And notice how everyone's turned green there. I can even know if I go up here who this is bad for. Say this is Richard here. I could say, oh, all of us can make it except Richard. So let's make sure we do it at a time that's good for him. See that? So we can get a lot more mileage out of what we can do with this app if we just take a little bit of time to sort of master it. And there's a lot of advantages to some of these apps. They have some shortcomings too.
Mike, I've seen that's terrific, mind-blowing. I've seen a number of questions around how we can stop the distractions of regular emails coming in. A couple of people asked, is there a specific time you check emails, or do just one every time? I know I read in your book, every time an email goes off, you stop, you have to go, and then you have to go back, and you lose a few minutes. How do you handle that?
You bet. My number one approach to this is to disconnect that email ding. Because of some research I did, and I've continued in this research even up to last week because I've been on with large groups, and people are saying they check their email on average 15 times an hour. And I think that's too many. That's just too much time where you peel away from something important that you're doing to check your email every 5 minutes. And a lot of that's because it dings, it pops up. So I really recommend for anybody to find the email alert system. And I think that most people, depending on what you do for a living, 95% of us can turn it off the ding bot, as I like to call that robot. And in Outlook for desktop, I click on File and Options, File Options and Mail. So FOM, File Options Mail, and then I just scroll down to Message Arrival. So see how mine are unchecked? I'll check them back up. When we get an email, no less than 4 things happen. And so that is almost training us to constantly go back and check our email. The reality is what you're being paid to do most likely isn't to be the best email monitor in the world. It's to have great ideas about how you can maximize the usefulness, effectiveness, and revenue and value of a venue or something that has great entertainment value. Now that takes some deep thought. That's not easy. You're competing with the world. You don't want to be an email attendant if you don't have to be. So my recommendation is turn off the dings and try to commit to 3 times an hour, every 20 minutes, check your email. That means you'll be getting back to people within a half an hour if it's an emergency or something really important. And I think that's a great best practice. And if, let's say I report to somebody super, super important, I mean, you're in the world of sports entertainment. I mean, I'm sure there are some athletes or something like that you want your inbox to ding on, okay? So let's say Lisa is that world-class Olympic, her daughters are actually track and field superstars. So let's pretend they're now have won the gold medal at the Olympics. I can right-click on Lisa's email in Outlook for PC, select Rules, and Create Rule. So very simple, right? When I've highlighted Lisa to get going, that means she'll be pre-populated here in this little mini rules menu, and I can click From Lisa and play a selected sound. What did I just do there? Now I'm focusing on the people that matter most instead of answering every message that comes in from a vendor who may be important, but not as important as the core people who bring value to my world. So that's just a quick example of optimizing your interruptions so you have more concentration without missing an important message from a superstar or the CEO of your organization.
Mike, I saw another question from another East Coaster. Matt Campbell wants to know
Hey,
if you need 365 to use the Outlook app on your phone.
That's a great question. And I've been on 365 for so long, and most of the organizations that I work with have been, but I think you may not. I think you might just need to know your Microsoft Office username and password. So I think that might be the only hurdle that you have to get over, is just to know your username and password, which sometimes when you've been working in an organization, you might not know it because you just got a computer with the desktop version on it. But I recommend asking your help desk or researching and figuring that out or resetting it, because now there are browser-based versions coming of all of these tools. And if you're not on Office 365, you might find yourself on there pretty fast, because what I'm seeing out there is Microsoft is really pushing this and making it available, and that it's supplanting other email tools really quickly. So they are gaining a lot of ground and seem like they're going to be here for the next 10 years. So in other words, I'm just saying investing in learning Microsoft stuff is probably a good investment, because it's not going to be flipped out for something else very soon.
Great. Mike, several people have asked, how you get the search tool in Outlook to save to your toolbar.
Okay. So this is an interesting question because to be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure. Just a couple days ago, this search bar moved from being right above my email to popping up to this top bar here. Now that should be a stock setup for most versions of Outlook via the desktop, right? So this should be there for 99% of the folks who look and see it. And I can't make it even disappear if I try to. So I've tried to sort the inbox differently, move it, sort by size of thing, and that search box is always there. So if you're on the desktop version of Outlook, it should be there. If you're on the browser-based version of Outlook, the search box is also still there, but you'll see a little triangle over here to the right. So for those of you that are not on it, maybe you could send me a screenshot of what you're looking at to info@getcontrol.net, because maybe a picture will give me 1,000 words in terms of why it wouldn't be there. But it's such an important part of the search function for the Microsoft world. It should be something that you should be able to get to appear for you, because searching will help you find stuff faster.
Great. Well, Mike, I think we've covered most. I scrolled back through everything. I think we've covered all the questions. Adam, did you see any that we've missed? Because I don't.
There are a few in the Q&A section as well. So let's walk through just a smattering of those if we can. Mike, when using the vocabulary shortcut, do you have tips for when you want the shortcut to stay as is, i.e. TM staying or going back to TM?
Let's see. I see what you're saying. Are you saying, okay, so I create a shortcut for time management, but sometimes I want to use that acronym. This is a really great question, because can you have the best of both worlds? So for example, at our organization, this is one of our flagship classes, Get Control of Email, Outlook, and Your Smartphone. And so, but sometimes we refer to it as GCE. So let's watch here as I type something out to Lisa. I might say, Lisa, we need to update the handout for, and here's that moment, right? I can type in, I just need to say GCE, and she'll know what I'm talking about. So I hit the space bar and I see, oh boy, it printed out the whole thing. Well, if I just hit Control Z, it will return it to that acronym. So I consider that to be a pretty easy correction if I want to go back and use just that acronym for some reason. Maybe it's in the subject line. I don't want that whole long thing to print out there. Although these acronyms don't work in the subject line, I should say here. They don't work here. It's one place they don't work, so that's not the best analogy. But if I'm trying to keep it short, that's how you can go back and have the best of both worlds. Another tip would be maybe you put like an X behind everything that you want to have abbreviated. So, I might type in GCEX. I've seen people do it that way as well. So they have a way to have the best of both worlds, which is what you want.
One more. Can you drag emails into your calendar if there isn't an actionable item, i.e. meeting in the email? For example, if it is to follow up on an item the email is about. Yeah,
in the desktop versions of Outlook, you can absolutely still drag it into your calendar. So if I'm grabbing this message from Jim here, and I want to just bring it in there just because I want to have a reminder. Here's one reason why I do that. Try to give you a real reason why I would do that. I might do that because here's a good example. Here's something from a great organization I do some work with, and if we're having a meeting and these are some instructions, I might drag it into the calendar like this and set it for the exact same time as that meeting that's coming up on the 15th. Maybe I'm meeting with her on the 15th at noon. And I'll just hit save and close. This will show up right next to that meeting, side by side on my calendar. So the value of doing that is great, because now I prep for that meeting without lifting a finger. As long as I'm 5 minutes ahead, which I always try to be 5 minutes early to meetings so that I can really review what I'm trying to accomplish. Now this would be sitting side by side with her calendar invite, which may not have a lot of background information in it. So now I have my background information from the email, and I don't even have to work very hard to do well in that meeting. So it's a great little time saver, help you show up looking smart. Oh, and I'll answer this one too. We do have training for Microsoft Teams. We do this almost every day now. So Microsoft Teams has really come on strong. And if you think about what we've done, we've created a class for any place in your day that takes up a lot of time. Meetings, Microsoft Teams communications is becoming very big. How do you organize all your digital information? That's what our Get Control University is. We wrote our books and then said, let's be as useful as we can. We'll create a class for each big chunk of your day. So it's a very useful suite of classes that we tried to, going back to something I mentioned to Richard earlier, my mom said, make yourself useful. Don't just sit there and watch TV when I was a kid. So that's it. That's drummed into my head. Don't waste people's time. Don't waste your own time, and try to work as efficiently as you can. I'm sorry. I think I cut you off there, Adam.
No, you're great. I was just going to drop in one from the list as well. I have 2 different Outlook calendars, work individual and work event. Any tips to simplify navigating between the 2 or to avoid mistakenly adding an item to the wrong calendar?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Well, like the working of the calendar here, certainly when I click into my world of calendars, you can see how very quickly it can help or it can be difficult. On the other hand, as my kids were doing more and more sports, I started to add their Google calendars in here under other calendars, and that allowed me to superimpose those calendars together. Now, I use primarily 2 calendars. So I have my own personal calendar and a team calendar. But of course, in the olden days when my son was playing a lot of baseball, I'd have all of his, Babe Ruth and high school games and stuff down here. And by clicking into those, you can see them both together. So for one thing, it is to really clearly sort of label these. I think when you right-click here, if there is some confusion about the calendar, all the calendars besides your personal calendar, you can really differentiate them and rename them by right-clicking on them and renaming them. So that can be a great way to make it more clear that this is the team calendar, all caps, right? And so you really make sure you're differentiating them. Another thing that can happen as you add calendars in the world of Outlook is, well, when you're in a particular calendar, you notice how it can change colors there sometimes, and that throws you off too. So just know that you can always, you can always go to that calendar, I think view, and change that color back to what you wanted it to be. Maybe you wanted it to be this familiar green. And then the final thing is that superimposing one calendar on another, maybe I'm looking at a busy week and I've got 3 things going on: kids sporting events, professional events, and my own personal calendar. Clicking this little button here, kind of easy to miss, will allow you to superimpose them on top of each other like that. So now I can see everything that I'm really doing, and I can see what the day is truly going to be like. If, for example, I've got sporting events here at 7 p.m., I got to drive to Brantford and make sure that I'm at the stadium. That's how I would mitigate that. So that's some of the ways that I differentiate my calendars. I also do use this shortcuts feature a lot. It's not that common that folks use it, but I like the shortcuts feature. It's a lot like the favorites feature in Outlook Mail, which more people use, but I like setting up my shortcuts here. So see how I have my calendar, team calendar, how crystal clear they are. Maybe if it's really confusing me, I'll pull this apart. These are 2 different email inboxes I manage. Notice how I pulled them down to the bottom so I wouldn't confuse this leads and info email inboxes with my main inbox there. So again, I like the shortcuts. It allows me to sort of rearrange things and place shortcuts to the places that I go the most inside of Outlook. So I'm into saving clicks. If I can save a couple clicks, I will invest the time to set it up. And that's what I've done there. Adding the shortcuts, you just right-click on the shortcuts title and select New Shortcut. So that's a pretty simple add. That'll bring up your items here. And so you can add things from different mailboxes, different calendars. You can add different things in there as you go. And I found that to be really helpful for my rapid navigation of my Outlook world.
Mike, I think you.
Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, I was just saying, I think you might have hit this earlier, but don't want to miss Leslie Stewart's question about, she's basically saying she has a separate email address for personal and wonders if that's the way to go, or is it better to have one email address for both business and personal?
Yeah, that's a really tough question. A little bit of personal choice there. I do try to divert a lot of stuff to my work email. This may not be the best way to do it, but I do have this idea that sometimes I always check my work email. So depending on what it is, I'll send it to some personal stuff to my work email. So I make sure that I don't miss it and I only have one place to check. But things like a newsletter that I don't want to have hit my work email, things like I buy a product, those I do divert to my that get control email and just send tons of stuff in there. And so that I don't, my rule is if it's not important enough for me to have to constantly check it, I'll send it to that Gmail address. If it is important, maybe it's my son's baseball coach. Yeah, that stuff's going to my work email, even though it's personal. Now, I may auto route that so it doesn't show up when I'm doing webinars because it's not really on topic. But for the most part, I believe there's a certain fragmentation that happens in our brains when we have to check two places. The most common example of that is that a lot of folks have to check their email folders and inboxes and sent folders, and then they store their documents in a secondary place. And to some extent, I think that creates these two big giant data repositories that we've all got to keep an eye on. So one little trick that you'd have to check with your help center, make sure you're allowed to do this. So one little trick that I have developed over time is, let's say this message from my friend Joan is incredibly critically important. It contains knowledge that I want to have. You know, this is something that's going to help me as part of my library of knowledge that I want to have in place. I'll highlight that message and I hit Control C or right click and copy. I'll copy that. And then I would navigate over to maybe if I have got a document folder, because this is part of a big project or presentation. Now I'm in File Explorer. This is actually within my SharePoint File Explorer account. I'm just going to pretend this is where I want that email to be. And then I can hit, actually, let me find a place where there's actually some other kinds of documents in there just so you get the real feel for this. Very quickly, I'll navigate to where something is, where there is another kind of document in there. So here's some PDFs. I hit Control V to paste it in there. And now Joan's super important email is sitting side by side with the documents I'm using for that project. Maybe these are all the instructions. And I am a big advocate of renaming stuff. So I usually name this something like, you know, a 2.0 for 2020, 05, 06 for today's date, and then, you know, instructions. So now when I go to really execute this project, you know, for ABC project, now I have a folder that has the documents, the PowerPoint, the Excel spreadsheet, and the email instructions in one nice, neat folder. And for me, that's very liberating. I have it in one place. So that's how I think about it. I know it's a long-winded answer for, hey, should I have a personal email? You know, and I think the question is, you know, I would route it. Anything controversial, of course, I would try to send it to that other email address too, and keep it out of my professional area. This is really fun, guys. Let me know when you need to get the hook and pull me out of here.
We promised we would have you done by 9, Mike, and we don't want to take advantage. We know you're going to be back in a couple of weeks. So, Adam, is there one last question we can throw out for today, and we'll save the rest for the 27th?
Yeah, I think good quick one for today is I like in the iPhone Outlook app, I like to send my emails to folders, but I don't archive my emails. In the app on the iPhone, when you're reading an email in the upper right corner is a file box called archive, but I want to switch that to the folder button. Is there a way to do that?
You know, that's a great question. And I have been one area that I always like to admit when I don't know something, I have had a little bit of trouble understanding archiving because working with as many companies as we do, I keep finding out that these companies are all different in how they archive stuff. So I think what you're saying here, you're looking at your inbox here, and this is just a great little zip tip to finish on if you are using the Outlook app. Many of the folks who are using it haven't quite realized yet that the inbox, which is where you go to, is just one folder that you can see. So you have to tap on the inbox itself to see all of your other apps there. So to answer your question, I am not sure how exactly your organization's using archiving. Some use it in different ways. But since I'm here, I will say that once you do that little maneuver and you tap on your inbox like that, this is a very important area here because you can add things to your favorites that are down below. So let's say you have a lot of email folders, but this is one here that you feel really strongly about, that that particular folder that you're in, that you might want to add that folder to those favorites. I think the way that you do that, I haven't done it in a little while, is you tap this tiny little pencil icon here. And that allows you to go through and star the folder. There it is, that sales materials folders. Maybe you're in sales and you want to sell more. Now that I've tapped that star, it will be up here as part of my my favorites. See that? See how that's now part of favorites there? It's highlighted in blue. So that's a great prioritization scheme on the phone. So hey, there's 4 folders. You check those folders the most. Make those folders your favorites so you have a lot less scrolling down and finding stuff in a big field of things that only create a lot of noise. so hopefully that I half answered that question and provided a little bit of information there. But boy, what a great session this was. And I'll just say my email address again. Anything I can do to help out at info@getcontrol.net. And what a great program, Richard, for you and Russ and Adam to put together for folks. I just can't thank you enough. We're all looking for a little positive stuff going on, and this is a great example of that. So I really appreciate the care you have for the folks you work with.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mike. And it just to you, so grateful that you carve out an hour of your time to join us. And I was just watching the chat lines going, that's awesome. People got so much out of it. So we'll see you back on the 27th. If you haven't registered, folks, for next week, please do. Working with difficult people is something we all do, and being difficult people is something we all are. And Russ and I and our team are going to have some great insights and tips that you'll sure want to join us. So thanks again, Mike. Thank you so much. Russ, great seeing you. And onward and upward, everybody. Be safe out there.
Am I the difficult person?
Never. All right.
Thanks.
Blessings, everybody. Thanks again, Mike.
Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.